I went on a 3-day hike with my family and my friends to unplug, reconnect and reset. And I hope this gives you a little inspiration on why getting out in nature and resetting might just be one of the best things that you do. So we decided to hike from close to where we live, just outside of Morzine, over 3 days and 2 nights, all the way over to Chamonix. And I'm talking like I planned and organised all of this. I did not. It was my husband's idea. He decided and we planned out the route. And this is our first station as we got to a refuge de Boston from Lac de Mindor. Both just decided that we want to have a little bit more focus on our health and our well-being, taking a break from just going out and having a few drinks at the weekend, which is all well and good, but we live in this incredible space and we wanted to experience it. So we got to the end of our day one, which was around 6 hours on the trail and about just under 19 kilometers. And after a good night's sleep, this was our accommodation. It was super basic, but it had a hot shower, which we were very grateful for and are ready to set off into day two.
Day two, peeps.
Day two!
Yeah, take a picture.
This was going to be a fairly big day, so we set off quite early. We went and had a little pit stop at the local boulangerie to get our picnic for the day, and we set off out of San Juan. It was a fairly flat walk to get started off with along by the river, and then we saw this spooky bus and we started making up stories of, I wonder what happened to the people on the bus. It was just abandoned there, and we loved the change in scenery. So this was kind of like a gorge section. It was nice and cool down here. Lots of ladders, really interesting trail to walk up, and really varied from the terrain that we had seen on the previous day. And that was the great thing about this hike, that each day was quite different from the day before. And I'd been really apprehensive about how the kids were going to be. Were they going to be whinging the whole time? Well, they absolutely took it in their stride. I was so impressed with how well they took this on. I mean, they are all competitive sporting kids, so it wasn't the fitness aspect, it was just the moaning and the whinging that I anticipated, and there was absolutely none of that. I was so incredibly proud of them. They really just allowed themselves to what we would be there for, to disconnect, to not be on their tablets or their phones all the time, to have conversations with each other. You were either in conversation or you were just alone with your own thoughts, letting your thoughts run through and just feeling quite at peace. And it felt almost that like time expanded during this time, and I just loved this feeling. Along this section of the hike, we came to the most stunning waterfall. It was incredibly beautiful. It was obviously a very popular pit stop, and it was so nice to just be able to go into that water, submerge ourselves. This was the perfect place for a pit stop, to enjoy our sandwiches that we'd got from the boulangerie, whilst dipping our toes and, let's face it, our bodies in the freezing cold water. And it was so cold. I took a moment to get my shoes off, ground my feet in the earth, and this just felt so incredibly good. Have you ever done this though, and just put your feet on the earth and noticed how good it feels? This is actually a really common practice that a lot of people do, called grounding or earthing, and it's the practice of physically connecting with the earth's surface, and science shows us that it can have profound effects on your body. There's a reason that it feels so good, because the earth carries a natural electrical charge, and when we connect with it by walking barefoot, touching a tree, sitting on the grass, sticking your feet in the ground, you are immersing yourself in the river. It can help neutralize free radicals in our body, reduce inflammation. It can even help improve sleep. It's just going to help you to feel darn good. And quite honestly, it was probably the energetic reset we needed, because the second half of the day after lunch was steep. It was hot. It was like getting to 30 degrees each day. Just look at the sweat on my cap. It was steep. This was tough on the legs. We used every ounce of strength we had. I think we drank all of our water, used up all of our electrolytes. But all along the way, the views are just so stunning. They really just keep you going. And I just kept on having to stop, and it was just in complete awe every time I turned around and wanted to be able to soak up these images and look back at how far we'd come. We had to take regular breaks, but as we got to the top of this section, we got our first view of Monte B, Mont Blanc there in the background. So that is where we were heading. We knew that that's where we wanted to get towards on our final day. We were, of course, spotting myrtles, blueberries on the way round, having a little snack. There were actually tons and tons of them everywhere. They were actually quite sweet and bitter, but it was just such a lovely thing to be able to do. Again, kids just being kids.
Did you get it?
So after over 20 kilometres and a very steep climb, there was over 1,250 metres of elevation. We reached our second night stop. So this is the Alfred Wills Refuge, and it was a welcome sight. And just look, we just got here just as the sun was beginning to dip down the side of that ridge. Beautiful views, very calm and peaceful feel around this plateau where the refuge is. And again, just looking back on how far we have come on to day 2.
What are you doing, Mum? With a bike?
So we did quite cool in the evening, so we went inside for a little game of Uno whilst we waited for dinner, and you do get 3 courses. It was fairly basic food, but definitely filled a hole after being hungry from our day's escapades. And just look at that sunset. We then started to get ready to pack up for the night, and I've got to say, I'm not a huge fan of a refuge. Sharing a space with 15 other smelly strangers is not my favourite thing to do. However, it's an experience, and I like to experience life. So setting into day 3, I was up super early actually. I'm an early riser, but as soon as someone started making noise, that was it. I was up with my bird's nest hairdo. I had a little go on the bike again to try and get my watch fully charged so that I could track my day 3. And then after some breakfast, which was once again provided, and they also provided us with a picnic, which you just pay extra for. We were ready to set off onto our final day. We had a steep climb straight out of the gate, looking back out across where we had just stayed the night. It was at this point we realised actually that Coop had left his t-shirt there, but yeah, that was way too far to be going back down to. And just over an hour in, we come to this beautiful lake, and because I hadn't had a shower because I couldn't be bothered queuing for cold water, we decided to take a dip in the lake. This lake is so fresh that you can actually drink out of it, but it was also incredibly freezing, which felt wonderful on our tired, achy joints and very refreshing. Brilliant way to set off the day before we get back into the heat. Day 3 was definitely the most challenging in terms of elevation. So after the lake, we had to head back up, and this is again when we got an even more spectacular view of Mont Blanc. As we set down into the next section, which was downhill, we got a view of some baby marmots playing and rolling around. Marmots were one of the animals that were on my bingo card. Then had a swift, continuous downhill, which was a little bit disconcerting because we know that whatever goes down has to go back up again. So that was a quick dip in the river before we were making the final ascent up to the Col de Brevon in Chamonix. So we could see back, this is where we started, back over that rocky ridge area, and look at this cuteness of the boys being so nice with each other. And this is what the final ascent looked like. This is giving like Lord of the Ring vibes, and here we saw an ibex, which was the second animal on my hiking bingo card that I wanted to see. So it's absolutely made up that we got to see both the marmots and the ibex. Of course, we needed to stop and take some pictures, only to reach the top of the col with just over an hour to go, and then see the sign that said it was another 45 minutes to the Brevant lift. So with slight panic starting to steep in, it was a scramble. There was ladders, there was loose rocks, and very shaky legs on my part. We made it to the top of the lift with about 10 minutes spare. Now I didn't actually record any of that section because there was panic going on right there. We needed to get there. We had been warned not to miss the last lift, as if you do, it is an extra 2 hours on your hike, and it is a very steep descent, which is very difficult on shaky legs. We were beyond elated to make it there on time, and just looking back at how far we'd come was the most incredible feeling. And honestly, this experience has been one of the best things that I have done in years. It's just fueled the fire for me to keep on striving and having more adventure in our lives. 3 days, 56 kilometers, 3,507 meters of elevation. We did it! These moments, these are hopefully memories that are going to stick with me for the lifetime, and hopefully that my kids are always going to remember and look back on and be like, oh, that time when we walked from Morzine to Chamonix. These are the things that live with you. We spend so much time waiting for the right moment, for everything to line up perfectly, but life is happening right now. Soak it up, experience it. There's a great big world out there. Go and explore it.